Story 1. I started stretching, especially my legs and hips. I was completely oblivious to how much muscle tightness was affecting my life. Story 2. Moving my body regularly, not intense gym workouts, but walking, stretching, and short workouts, improved my energy and mood. I used to think exercise was optional or a punishment, but it is a life booster. Learning to say no made a big difference. I spent years people-pleasing and doing things I did not want to do, and it drained me. Once I started saying no without feeling guilty, life became lighter and I had much more mental space for the things I actually cared about. Story 3. Organizing and decluttering helped tremendously with mental peace and clarity. Story 4. I started my own company. I'll never work as an employee for someone else again. My life is infinitely better in so many ways. Story 5. I cut off energy vampires. I cannot believe how light my soul is now. Story 6. Swimming quiets the mind and is gentle on the body. This is water. Story 7. Speaking to people at random. There are diamonds out there, but you have to put in the work to find them. Story 8. I am paying attention to my thoughts, fears, and anxiety. I am trying to understand them by reading books, examining family traumas, and being more open instead of feeling ashamed. You will be surprised how relatable mental health is. You can connect with people, help others, and receive support in return. I have met many great people on the same path. Story 9. I devoted my evenings to reading every post on the personal finance subreddit. I was born into a family of broke jokes and I learned so much. That community is truly the reason I am a functioning human being. Story 10. Go to bed and get up at the same time 7 days a week. Story 11. Metal detecting. I started metal detecting in Florida during the COVID-19 pandemic. I found a silver ring and got hooked. I then moved to New Mexico and thought the fun would be over, but I started getting into history. My brother and I found an old ghost town on Bureau of Land Management land and dug up a sterling silver Albert chain that had a cigar cutter and a match safe attached. Inside the match safe was a $2.50 gold coin from 1853. It is easily the best hobby I have ever tried. Story 12. Smile at strangers. For a long time I complained that everyone was unfriendly. Then I realized I was not particularly friendly either. Most people are friendly if you extend the first gesture. Story 13. Minimalism is not about living in an empty white box. It is about carefully considering purchases and letting go of clutter guilt-free. There is much more peace in my home, it is easier to clean, and I feel less anxious. I have released things I held onto out of guilt or shame, and I have more money. It has been nothing short of amazing. Story 14. I had a hysterectomy. The immediate improvement in my quality of life was remarkable. Story 15. I bought a set of cookie dough scoops. I love to bake but do not do it very often, so I always felt that scoops were an unnecessary extravagance. One day I decided to try them, and now it is faster and easier to make uniformly sized, attractive cookies. I bake more, and it makes my family and me happy. Story 16. I do not drink alcohol or use marijuana. Everything is so much easier and more rewarding. I wasted my 20s. Story 17. Focus more on family and spend less time with negative people. Story 18. I stopped watching the news and focused on positive things in the world around me that I can control. It was life-changing. Story 19. Learning to say no without over-explaining. Life became quieter and much less stressful. Story 20. Deleted Twitter, X, and Facebook. Unfollowed people on Instagram who posted things that annoyed me. Laughing out loud. Story 21. I started walking 4 kilometers a day, and I lost 40 pounds. Story 22. Learning additional languages is extremely rewarding at 50. Why did I waste 30 years of my adult life speaking only to English speakers? Story 23. Manjaro helped me lose almost 100 pounds after years of struggling. I feel like I got my life back. Story 24. Exercise. I rode my Peloton bike 6,500 miles in 2025, and I am aiming for 8,000 or more in 2026. No more being overweight. Story 25. I set firm boundaries with my relatives, which only made me unhappy. Story 26. I am definitely going to rehab to quit drugs and alcohol. Story 27. We had children. I do not regret not doing it sooner. We waited until we were in the right place financially. Suddenly, all my priorities fell into place. I felt confident in my decisions and I no longer internalized other people's opinions. Having a child transformed me into the best version of myself. Story 28. Seeking and receiving a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Story 29. With hip openers and 50 leg swings per side, I achieved my side splits. It is surprising how tight hips can affect mobility. Story 30. Not drinking alcohol. If you are drinking heavily and want to stop, do what you can to reach that goal. It is truly amazing the difference it makes. If executives at alcohol companies tried that, they would have to shut down their businesses. Story 31. I stopped caring about what others thought of me. Life became much easier and more fun. Story 32. Getting a divorce. I was afraid of losing the house and I eventually did, but starting over isn't as bad as some may think. The peace that came with it was worth much more. Story 33. Wellbutrin has changed and continues to improve my life. Story 34. I spit out the toothpaste instead of rinsing when I brush my teeth. I have not had any cavities or sensitivity since I started doing that. Story 35. Switching to the bipolar medication Depakote has made managing my illness much easier. Feels like I am living a different life. I can do things I could not do before and I function much better. I am not just limping along, I am actually thriving. I did not find this medication until after 10 years of being medicated and about 20 years of living with bipolar disorder. Finding the right medication is very difficult. I am so thankful I finally found it. Story 36. I switched from manual daily injections to an insulin pump. I am a type 1 diabetic. Story 37. Leaving religion. I was nearly 30, and I wish I had left as soon as I was 18 or even sooner. Getting a breast reduction at 25. I wish I had done it as early as possible. Story 38. I floss daily. I reduce road rage by driving more slowly. I drink filter tap water brought from home and avoid other beverages during the day, except for 1 cup of coffee in the morning. Story 39. Removing toxic people from my life and not caring what people think about me or what I do. Story 40. I am figuring out what my brain needs to be happy, not just going through my day doing the same grown-up things I see everyone else doing. Story 41. Going on the birth control pill. My unregulated periods were so painful I had to crawl to the bathroom because it hurt too much to walk. I used 12 pads a day, and my periods came at completely unpredictable intervals. My parents never took me to the doctor and I never thought to ask. My period started at 10, so I was not yet making my own decisions about seeing a doctor. When I was 18, I started taking the birth control pill because I was entering a sexual relationship. To my surprise, my periods became painless, occurred like clockwork, and I needed only 1 pad a day. Story 42. I am retired and filling my days with enjoyable hobbies such as playing guitar and bass, joining a band, painting, gardening, and spending time with my Labradors. Life is full, and I am doing the things I want without anyone telling me what to do. Story 43. I had lived on my own before, but when I moved to a large city it was too expensive, so I moved in with roommates for a year. My mental health declined, and recently I could not take it anymore. I moved into a nicer place alone that cost more than half my paycheck, but it immediately improved my mental health. Even though I had less money for food, entertainment, and other purchases, my happiness increased significantly. I noticed the change right away, and it made me realize the importance of having your own space. Story 44. Quit drinking alcohol, spend less money, feel more productive and healthier, and stop waking up with that feeling of dread in the morning. Story 45. I cut ties with people who drained me even though it felt lonely at first. Story 46. Learning to recognize the mental patterns and spirals I would fall into, to see that they are just thoughts and that I am not them, and to tell my brain to quiet down. It was a massive breakthrough with far fewer random bouts of anger or depression. Story 47. Stop drinking alcohol. Can't believe I did all those crazy things. 808 days sober today and grateful. Story 48. Unsubscribing from email, YouTube channels, and social media reduces mental clutter. Story 49. Inner child work and internal family systems therapy. I realized that my anxiety, addictions, and overthinking were not flaws. They were coping strategies formed when I was young. I stopped hating myself and started healing instead. I wish I had learned that 20 years earlier. Story 50. I split up with my long-term partner, stopped working excessively long hours, and moved several hours away to be closer to friends and family. I thought I was happy, but I was wrong. I would not say I regret it. We thought we were doing the right thing and lessons have been learned. We are still not fully separated because the house is struggling to sell, so I had to move back in with my parents while it sells. Despite that, I am much happier. I have learned to prioritize myself, not work or other people. Of course, you will always have to do things for others, and I enjoy that, but I never prioritized myself before. Story 51. Getting enough sleep made me realize how much of my personality was just being tired. Story 52. I met my husband years ago. Life is such a joy with him. I wish we had been able to travel together and have more children. Story 53. I cut out sugar and went from 220 to 180 pounds in 4 months, without any exercise other than walking my dogs once a day. Story 54. I stopped eating gluten, and my physical and mental health dramatically improved in just a few weeks. Turns out that celiac disease runs in my family. Story 55. Drinking around 500 milliliters of water first thing in the morning has helped digestion immensely for someone with stomach issues. Story 56. Keto. For a while I tried to share it with everyone like the gospel, but every person who would listen to my story, I never directly told them they should do it because that seemed insensitive, had some reason why they could never do it. It was interesting to watch people justify their own nonsense. I can't give up pasta. You can if you simply try, and it is only temporary. Not eating carbs sounds difficult. No. You just do not put them into your mouth. It is actually less work than eating them. That's not healthy. Neither is being morbidly obese. I lost 150 pounds and changed my health completely. I did this under doctor supervision as well. There was not an area of my life it did not improve. I could get around more easily. I had more confidence. It was simpler to buy clothes. I gained social benefits. It was truly wild. I am a normal weight now and have been since I finished keto about 6 years ago. The only downsides were that people who knew me before did not recognize me. I received more scrutiny whenever I had to show identification or a passport. People felt at liberty to make comments about my body, which was very unwelcome, including someone who said, "Oh my God, you look so much better now." The people in my life who remained on the heavier side did a complete 180 and treated me very differently. Story 57. Nose job. I broke my nose playing sports when I was younger. Even before that, I always thought it was too large and did not fit my face. They set it back in place at the time, but a nose job in my late 20s was the best money I ever spent. I am no longer self-conscious and never have to think about it. Story 58. Good person, cool. Not a cool person, trash. Do not waste another second on anyone who is cruel to others. Story 59. Getting a good robot vacuum. We have 2 golden retrievers and they shed so much. I run the vacuum constantly, and it almost seems like our house isn't a complete disaster. Story 60. Since I have taken turmeric a few times a week, my knees do not hurt as much. Story 61. Be a yes man, get 8 hours of sleep at night, and delete Facebook and Instagram. Story 62. Taking Metamucil powder every day makes bathroom visits infinitely more pleasant, especially with a squatty potty. A colorectal doctor recommends Metamucil for everyone daily, and I see why. Story 63. I quit a job I utterly hated, even though it paid well, to take a job I love that pays less. Story 64. Getting a second dog makes our current dog happy. and watching the two of them play brings twice as much love and cuddling. Story 65. I stopped dating immature men. My quality of life is much better. Story 66. Getting myself checked medically. Things can sneak up on you or be filed away as normal or attributed to aging. Then you end up spending huge chunks of your life thinking your misery is your fault, that you cannot cope, or that everyone has it. Story 67. Do not depend too much on others, even if they are your parents. Story 68. Maternity panties keep my belly and kidneys warm at night. I will never stop buying them, and I do not care that they are big. In the same category, postnatal vitamins increased my hair density by about threefold. Story 69. It has been 11 months since I started bouldering in February 2025. One of the luckiest things I am grateful for is that 2 to 3 months in, I met a new friend at a similar level. We started climbing together and it slowly became a weekly ritual. Over time, I began to see more defined muscles, gain strength, and most importantly, had more energy. Everything felt joyful and effortless. Sometimes I wish I had started as a child or a teenager, but it is never too late. Story 70. Meditation, self-awareness, and letting go of negative feelings. Story 71. Hormone replacement therapy. I did not start until my late 40s and should have been on it in my mid to late 30s. I am so happy about all the guideline changes and that there is more education about it so younger women will know more than we did. Story 72. I am going to my doctor to be evaluated for depression and to discuss therapy. Story 73. At 34, turning 35 later this year, I am starting to value experiences, peace, and social interaction more than possessions. I feel my life has been stagnant compared to my peers, but I'm finally realizing I've been chasing what they have instead of focusing on improving my own. Next phase. Cutting out doom scrolling and impulsive use of artificial intelligence. I might pick up a book or 5. Story 74. I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and later discovered that Strattera was the right medication for me. My general anxiety decreased tenfold, and I still have focus issues, but they are not as severe. Life is much more manageable. Story 75. I moved out of the United States for a second time. I originally left for work in 2011 and returned in 2016. I should have obtained citizenship of the other country before going back, but I did not think I would leave the United States again. My permanent residency has been approved for a while, but I have a couple of months to go before naturalization. I could not be happier to be out of that shithole. Story 76. I quit social media and alcohol. I walk 10,000 steps a day, eat healthily most of the time, go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, spend as much time as possible away from my phone, spend time in nature, do stretches before bed, am fully present with my girlfriend and daughter, and cut off people I do not enjoy spending time with. This does not mean I am happy all the time, but my mental health has improved drastically. Story 77. Lifting lighter weights has been better for me. Heavy lifts like a 400-pound squat and a 500-pound deadlift were fun, but they completely drained my energy and left me with no will to do anything else. I stick to about 150-pound squats and 220-pound deadlifts now and am much happier for it. Male, 36 years old. Story 78. Cutting off people who made me anxious instead of supporting me. Story 79. Positive thinking. I come from a negative family and a toxic hometown. All my life, until I started university, I was surrounded by undermining, morale-sapping so-called friends. That left a mark on me. It was only in my late 20s that I began to step out of that shadow. Story 80. I moved from working from home to working in the office. Amid many people saying working from home is better, I had not realized how well the office suited me personally. Story 81. I do consistent exercise and eat a healthy diet. I walk, run, and do strength training. This has transformed my life. I am hardly ill anymore. I have more energy, and I am stronger and more confident. Story 82. Daily exercise improved my mood, energy, and focus much more than I expected. Story 83. I commute by bicycle to work 9 kilometers each way on most days, except when there is snow or ice. Story 84. What improved your life so much that you wish you had done it sooner? Eliminating drama and the people who caused it. Story 85. I stare at people when they say rude things to me. Previously, I would start rambling to try to prevent awkwardness, but it only made me feel worse while others laughed. Never break your stride for someone else. If someone knowingly disrespects you, respond firmly and explain that it could have been avoided if they had not chosen to treat you that way. Show no emotion. Teach a lesson. Story 86. Quit. Do not stay in a soul-crushing job. The company will be fine without you. And even if it is not, that is not your problem. Story 87. I had my teeth fixed. It cost $20,000, but it was worth every penny. I know they had been holding me back socially and professionally. The increased confidence made a world of difference. Story 88. Strength training that builds the glutes and legs can have surprising benefits. It can improve self-esteem, lower back health and posture, feelings of power and sexual quality. Story 89. I am going to therapy. I am able to create strong boundaries, protect myself from manipulation, and no longer have a people-pleasing tendency. Story 90. Praying, reading the 4 Gospels, and developing a relationship with Jesus. It goes against what I always considered rational. I hate religion and what it has done throughout human history, but to be honest, once I prayed to Jesus and told him that if he were real I would dedicate my life to him, everything got better for a time. Ever since then, when difficult things happen, he has helped me through them all. I am 51. This happened when I was 30. I know this sounds cringy, but it is my truth. Story 91. I should have learned I could skip my period with birth control pills ages ago. Story 92. Laser eye surgery. If I had known how good the results would be, I would not have been scared to have the surgery. It has been years, and I still get emotional realizing that my vision is now crystal clear and high definition all the time. It definitely was not like this before. Story 93. I had my deviated septum fixed. It has improved my quality of life so much. Story 94. Don't take things too seriously. Just trust the process. Story 95. Wear a mouth guard at night. I have bruxism and ground my teeth down quite a bit before we figured out I was grinding my teeth in my sleep. Story 96. I cut out caffeine from tea and coffee completely. My sleep improved significantly. Previously, I didn't think it was a problem because everyone was drinking it. Waking up feeling refreshed naturally removes the need for caffeine. I can now be productive throughout the day. Story 97. I got an adaptive servoventilation machine. It is like a continuous positive airway pressure device but for central sleep apnea, which is when the brain does not signal you to breathe. I did not dream for about a decade and lived in a constant fog. I cannot believe that feeling refreshed is how most people wake up. Story 98. After quitting caffeine, I sleep better and need much less rest. Story 99. I fixed my sleep schedule and am getting the proper 8 hours each night. Story 100. A vacuum that also mops. Not a cheap one but a high-quality model. It saves so much time. Story 101. Yoga. Holding poses, focusing on breath, and meeting myself where I am on the mat has given me a form of movement meditation that I constantly seek, even in the worst of times. Story 102. I quit using cannabis and took up reading instead. I no longer experience brain fog, and I am learning new things while retaining the information. Story 103. Exercise changed my life. To be honest, I was depressed for a long time and had tried the gym several times for months at a time, but when it finally stuck I felt completely different. Story 104. Laser hair removal. I have only had one session so far and have noticed a huge difference. Story 105. Exercise and get enough sleep. I felt much better when I prioritized exercise over money. I wish I could have stayed in that phase. Story 106. Being vulnerable and honest with the people closest to me was the best decision of my life. I started showing them who I am and stopped hiding my insecurities. Our bonds are 10 times better. Story 107. Cutting off fake people and deleting most social media except Reddit and YouTube. Story 108. Investing in bedroom essentials such as a mattress, pillows, and sheets is a game changer for sleep. Story 109. I learned how to cook and to plan my meals. I went from living on takeaways and dreading each meal because it was a pain to decide what to have, to eating much more healthily and actually being excited for the next meal. I lost a lot of weight simply by eating more fresh food. Story 110. I did not care whether people understood or validated the path I wanted to take in life. The most revolutionary people in history were the ones who were labeled crazy at first. Story 111. I started therapy last year after my divorce, and I just wish I had taken that step 10 years ago. Story 112. I used to worry that if I said no often my friends would forget about me, or that if my family went out without me I would miss something important. To some extent that was true, but I do not have to go to everything. I can skip a hangout, miss a movie, or leave a gathering whenever I want. Forcing myself to be somewhere I do not want to be when I do not have to go is not fun for anyone. It also helps that the friends in my life have seen a much more authentic version of me, so often they are not asking me to go to things they know I would not be interested in, and when they do I know it is because they need me there. It has made my life better and has given me much more sleep. Story 113. Nagtatrabaho sa ibang bansa. Sa nanong medyo batapea ako ay psilom nakapag-explore ako enge ibate ibang trabaho at nakatulong na mapaganda eng bahay engem gaya magulang kao. Story 114. Bedjet. I am not sure how I could sleep without it anymore. Story 115. I had a root canal on a perpetually sore tooth. I can now chew on that side of my mouth. Story 116. Decluttering, planning, and executing life goals, including dieting and exercising. Understanding how to establish good habits and be productive in general is the closest thing to a life hack I've come across. Story 117. I cannot believe the dramatic influence that seeing a psychologist has had on my well-being, confidence, and life. Story 118. Two important changes over the last 3 years. First, gardening, growing my own produce and fruit. I'm learning a skill, eating better, and appreciating my food more. Second, being kinder to myself. I can criticize myself without being overly harsh, acknowledge my faults, and recognize when my inner critic crosses the line. Story 119. I wear women's clothes. I always hated shopping for men's clothes and never cared about how I looked. Turns out that was because men's clothing is typically either boring or expensive. I'm much happier now that I can find clothes I like. Story 120. I finally married the right person. My first marriage lasted 15 years and produced 3 children. The second and third marriages were train wrecks. Out of nowhere came someone I knew in high school. We did not recognize each other when we started dating. She is my best friend. I wish we had married right out of high school. It would have saved me decades of pain. Life is amazing right now. We are meeting our goals and living stress-free, full of love and true peace. Story 121. Marrying my wife was unlike anything I had experienced. I had been married previously and was engaged to a different woman at one point. Meeting my wife created a feeling I had never known. I am grateful to be with her. Story 122. I do not listen to people who say hospitality is not an adult or respectful job. I have been working as a bartender for over 7 years, and it has made me the most positive and fulfilled I have ever been, especially since I stopped thinking hospitality is bad. I also stay active. Story 123. I uninstalled Instagram because I was so addicted to reels that my wrist muscles hurt. Story 124. Running took a bit of persistence to get through the initial discomfort of feeling sick or breathless after a few minutes. If you take your time, you can make incremental improvements very quickly. Once I could reach 1 kilometer without feeling wiped out, I pushed to 2 kilometers, then eventually 5 kilometers. When I could run 5 kilometers without stopping, it became easier to go farther. A similar amount of effort could carry me farther as long as I slowed down and stayed hydrated. After a year or 2, I was able to finish a marathon. After getting past the initial discomfort, the benefits were amazing. I enjoy listening to upbeat music while I run. It helps me clear my mind and lose track of time. On a particularly good day, the endorphin release can feel transcendental. The runner's high often lasts throughout the day. My mood is better, eating and drinking are more satisfying, my muscles feel well stretched, my sleep is deeper, and I even notice my singing improves after my lungs and windpipe have had a good airing. Those are just the mental health benefits. Once you enjoy running and want to do it regularly and for longer sessions, weight loss became effortless. Diet is still the most important factor if you're trying to lose a lot of weight, but if you are fit enough to run the equivalent of a half marathon every week, it becomes much easier to maintain a calorie deficit without giving up the occasional snack. Story 125. I quit alcohol and selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. I was so afraid of doing so, but it tremendously improved my life along with therapy and lifestyle changes. Story 126. Laser-assisted in situ keratomileusis eye surgery. I had it when I was 38 and wish I had done it as soon as I was old enough at 21. Story 127. Starting a glucagon-like peptide 1 medication and losing all the weight that was ruining my life in more ways than one. Story 128. I started dancing in 2017. It was not just a weekly class. I took classes regularly and attended parties organized in and around my city. Dancing has changed my life. I now have an activity that challenges me. I learn something new every week. It gets me out of the house, clears my mind, and above all allows me to see people outside of work and my circle of friends. Story 129. I shared my emotions with a loved one and allowed myself to be vulnerable in my mid-20s. I went to therapy and cut out the people in my life who brought me down. Story 130. I left my toxic investment banking job. The culture was brutal. People worked like robots, engaging in nonstop flattery, with no self-respect and constant pretending. I saw people sell the last bit of their humanity just to climb the ladder and feel important. I stayed for almost 4 years, telling myself it was normal or that it would get better. It did not. Leaving did more for my mental health than any break or vacation ever could. I genuinely wish I had walked away sooner. Story 131. Pilates improved my energy and mood. I used to deprioritize myself, and changing that had a significant impact. Story 132. I recently started painting, and now I do it daily. It is a form of meditation, and I am offline most of the time. That has drastically improved my mental health. Story 133. I am pushing myself outside my comfort zone to grow as a business professional. For most of my adult life, I have been naturally introverted and took the easy route. I preferred familiar routines and became complacent in my safe space because it felt risk-free. Recently, I had the opportunity at work to explore areas where I had no experience, and I was very nervous. I feared supervisors would mock or berate me for not knowing enough, but my colleagues supported me and showed me the ropes. I am grateful to work with people who care about my development. I am proud that I stepped up and learned that the only way to grow is to push yourself, try, fail, and try again. Story 134. I leave my phone in a different room before bed. The Apple Watch alarm wakes me up more calmly, and because it only vibrates, it does not disturb my partner if they want to sleep in. Story 135. When you think in constraints rather than wishes and know the exact limitations of what you want, you see clearly and your life becomes much better. Story 136. Reading books on self-care, mindfulness, discipline, philosophy, and so on gave me tools I had lacked in the past. Only now do I see real growth. I also learned about losing weight. 2 years ago, I ate less but trained heavily every day, which damaged my muscles and caused constant pain. The damage became apparent when I started lifting lighter weights than before, and I returned to my previous weight. Since October, I have taken a different approach, focusing on counting calories. My activity is now mainly riding a stationary bike or going on walks. I plan to start jogging once a week to increase my overall activity and to lose an additional 5 kilograms. Story 137. Weight loss surgery, then rebounding, running, and weightlifting. Also glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists and lisdexamfetamine. Story 138. Yoga, calmer mind, better body. I wish I had begun years ago. Story 139. Laser-assisted in situ keratomileusis made a day-to-day difference in my life. Story 140. I am sleep training my baby. My God. We are all so much happier in this house, including the baby. Story 141. My weight loss happened when I was 21, but I wish I had done it much sooner. People treat me differently now. They notice me. Story 142. I left my salary job to become an entrepreneur. I manage my own time, and no employer dictates my schedule, vacations, or anything else. Story 143. Cutting sugar and carbohydrates with intermittent fasting has been a game changer. Story 144. I go for a morning walk every day within 20 minutes of waking up in the park by my apartment. Then I have a cup of coffee and journal before starting my day, and it's been life-changing. It helps me figure out my day and spend time with myself, which is incredibly important for my mental health and shifts my perspective to be more positive. Getting moving motivates me and starts the momentum for the day. Story 145. I stopped worrying about what other people think of me. Other people's opinions of me are none of my business, except for my supervisors at work. Story 146. Riding motorcycles can help with post-traumatic stress disorder. It was a game changer for me. You must stay in the moment or else. It is so enjoyable. I feel the excitement every time I start my Africa Twin. Story 147. Be myself and not worry about what others think of me. Story 148. I got my finances in order. I figured it out at 27 and can't imagine how different life would have been if I had figured it out at 20. Now in my 30s, I feel very secure and steady with money, which is great. I no longer worry about my account balances or unexpected expenses popping up. I'm not rich, but having my finances in order makes me feel rich and relaxed. Story 149. Starting a simple daily exercise routine significantly improved my life. It took a while to get into the habit, but once I did, my energy and mood became much better. It is something I wish I had started sooner. Story 150. I am choosing to tighten my circle and be around people who add value to my life. There is no need to bring external negativity and stress into my mind. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.